Chapter 1: Highway Dust. I wasn't supposed to stop there. That's the part I keep replaying. That moment between mile marker 211 and 212, when the desert had turned into a black ocean under a moonless sky, and the highway stretched ahead like a long, empty scar. I should have driven through the night. I should have ignored the blinking, low fuel light and kept going until sunrise. Instead, I saw the motel sign. A flicker of red neon in the darkness, partially dead, partially alive, spelling Desert Palms Motel, even though there wasn't a single palm in sight, just dust, broken bottles, and a loneliness so thick it felt like another person sitting in a passenger seat. My hands were shaking on the wheel. I told myself I needed rest. I told myself everything would be fine. I had no idea I was driving into a place where time had stopped. And something else still moved. The parking lot was empty, not quiet. Empty in that suffocating way abandoned places are, like the air is holding its breath. Only one room had a light on, room 8. The rest of the building sat in perfect darkness. Every window closed, every curtain drawn, every door shut except one, cracked open like a mouth that forgot how to close. I stepped out of my car and immediately felt it. The heat from the road was gone. Wind was gone. Sound was gone. A desert night is never silent. There's always the chittering of insects, the hiss of wind, the shuffle of something living. But not here. Here the world felt sealed under glass. The front office door creaked when I pushed it. A dusty bell sat on the counter, next to a glass jar of peppermints that looked like they were from the previous century. A pale, thin man emerged from the back. His eyes didn't blink normally. They slid. "Evening," he rasped. "Room." I nodded. He didn't ask for my name. Didn't ask how long I'd stay. He just slid an old brass key across the counter. Actual brass, not a card. I noticed something else. The keychain tag didn't say a number. It said, "Not 8. I frowned. Is this some kind of joke? The man's lips twitched like he was trying to smile, but forgot the order of the muscles. "No joke. Your room's 14. But it says, it ain't 8. His voice hardened. "No one stays in 8. My eyes drifted to the single lit window outside. Room 8. Someone was there. He noticed my stare. His expression changed. Not fear. Something worse. A hollow acceptance. "Folks check in there," he whispered, "but they don't check out." I laughed nervously, expecting him to crack a grin, say it was a local ghost story to scare tourists. He didn't. His eyes moved to the office door as if making sure it was shut tight. "Whatever you do," he said, lowering his voice to a whisper so thin I had to lean in to hear, "don't knock. Don't look in the window. Don't answer if it knocks first." The man didn't answer. He simply pushed the key harder into my palm. And then he added something that made my veins turn to ice. "If you hear someone asking for help, keep walking. It ain't a someone." Room 14 was on the far end of the motel, 2 doors down from 8. The moment I stepped into the hallway, I regretted everything. The floors were covered in muddy footprints, only they weren't muddy. Mud doesn't smear like that. Mud doesn't look reddish-brown under yellow lights. The prints all led toward room 8. None came back out. I swallowed hard and kept moving. Room 14's door jammed before it opened, like something heavy was leaning against it. When I finally pushed through, a wall of cold air hit me. The AC wasn't on. In fact, the room looked like it hadn't been cleaned in weeks. Rumpled sheets, a TV from the 90s, carpet that crunched under my boots. But it wasn't the state of the room that bothered me. It was the smell. A faint, metallic scent, like old coins. or dried blood. I was just setting my bag down when it started. A soft, slow, dragging sound from the hallway. Shh, shh, shh. Like someone pulling their feet along the floor. Someone who didn't want to be heard but couldn't help it. I froze. The sound grew louder, closer, slower, stopping. Right, outside, my door. I held my breath. I waited. The silence stretched until it felt like hours. Then, tap, tap, tap. 3 knuckles tapping softly on my door. I forced myself to look through the peephole. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. But when I stepped back from the door, the tapping came again. This time from below the peephole. Lower. As if the person, or whatever, had crouched down. And then a voice whispered through the crack under the door. "Can you help me?" Chapter 2. Room 8. "Can you help me?" The voice was thin and shaky, like someone who'd been crying for hours and finally ran out of tears. My body reacted before my brain did. I took a step back from the door, every instinct screaming no. "Please," it whispered again. I just need a place to stay. They locked me out of my room. It's cold." My mouth went dry. The receptionist's warning replayed in my head. "If you hear someone asking for help, keep walking. It ain't a someone." I cleared my throat. "Go to the front office," I said, trying to sound calm. "They can help you." Silence. Then in the same breathless voice, "They're not there. I've been knocking and knocking. Nobody answers. Please, just open the door." The knob twitched. Not hard, just a delicate testing rattle, like fingers brushing metal. I glanced at the time on my phone. 2:11 a.m. Of course. I don't know why, but it always feels like the worst things happen between 2 and 3 a.m. The hour where sleep is deepest and the world is thinnest. The knob jerked again, harder. "You're in room 14, right?" the voice asked. Every hair on my body stood up. I hadn't told anyone my room number. I stared at the door as if I could see through it. "How do you know that?" I asked. A shaky laugh came from the other side. We checked in together. Don't you remember?" My skin crawled. "I came in right after you. The man at the desk? He gave me room 8. Room 8. The words felt like ice plunged into my spine. I took another step back. I didn't remember anyone coming in after me. There were no other cars outside, no footsteps in the office, no sound of a second key sliding across the counter. "You're lying," I said. "I'm not," the voice answered quickly. "Please, I just need somewhere to stay until morning. I don't want to be out here anymore." Something in the way they set out here made my stomach twist. I edged closer again, just enough to look through the peephole. The hallway was empty. Yellow light, stained carpet, nothing else. But the voice was still right there, too close. "Open the door," it whispered, soft and coaxing now. "It's so cold. I'm so tired." A chill leaked under the door, like the air itself was draining out. I swallowed. "I can't help you." The silence that followed was worse than the voice. It stretched, thin and brittle. Then, in a flat, emotionless tone, the voice asked, "You heard him, didn't you?" "Who?" "The man at the desk," it said. "You heard him warn you. About me." My heart pounded in my throat. "He tells everyone," the voice continued, still too close, as if its lips were pressed to the crack at the bottom. "But they don't listen. They always open the door. You're different." There was a dragging sound, something heavy shifting against the outside of the door, like a shoulder pressing against the wood. "I'm so tired," it repeated, each word slower than the last. Then it went quiet. No footsteps walking away, no sound of retreat, just nothing. I stood there, waiting. Minutes passed. My legs began to shake. Finally, I forced myself to lie on the bed, fully dressed, shoes still on. I left the light on. I told myself I'd just rest my eyes. I didn't sleep exactly. I slipped into that half-conscious state where thoughts twist into strange shapes. And that's when I heard it. Another sound. Not from the door this time. From the wall I shared with room 8. A slow, deliberate cough, then another, and another, like someone sitting upright in bed on the other side, lungs scarred, struggling to push air out. I sat up straight. The coughing grew louder, more violent. It turned into wheezing, then choking, a horrible wet sound, like someone drowning in something thicker than water. It stopped suddenly. Then came the dragging. God, that sound. Shh, shh, shh. Feet scraping across the floor, hands maybe. A body, moving closer to the wall I was against. I pressed my palm to the wall. It was icy. On the other side, something pressed back. Not hard, just enough for me to feel it, like a hand, right where mine was. I jerked away. From the other side, something began to tap. Once, twice, 3 times. And between each tap, a distant, hoarse whisper leaked through the wall. Help! Me! I didn't leave. That's the part that bothers me most when I think about that night. I didn't grab my keys, run to my car, and drive until the Motels was just a bad dream bruising the horizon. Instead, I stayed, because curiosity is a parasite. And fear? Fear is stupid. It makes you freeze when you should run. It makes you listen when you should shut everything out. The coughing came again, followed by a long, ragged exhale, like a final breath that refused to end. I checked my phone. 2:37 a.m. notifications lit the screen, but one jumped out at me. A message from an unknown number. Unknown. You're in room 14, right? My stomach nodded. I didn't reply. A second bubble appeared. Unknown. I can see your light through the wall. Please. Can I come in? My eyes shot to the wall. The lamp beside my bed cast a pale rectangle of light across it. No cracks, no holes, no gaps. Just peeling wallpaper and a water stain shaped like a handprint above the headboard. I typed with shaking fingers. Me. Who is this? 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Unknown. I'm an 8. Every instinct screamed at me to block the number, throw the phone away, do something. Instead, I asked the worst possible question. Me. How did you get my number? No dots. No reply. I stared at the screen, waiting. Finally, one last message appeared. Unknown. You wrote it down. I stared at those words until they blurred. I didn't write anything, I muttered aloud, as if the empty room needed convincing. That's when I saw it on the nightstand, next to the yellowed lamp and the Bible. With half its cover torn off, lay a small, leather-bound guest book. I hadn't noticed it before. The cover was cracked, the pages curled from years of being turned. A pen rested across it, lid chewed off. I don't know why I opened it. I shouldn't have. But my fingers moved before I could stop them, flipping past names, dates, shaky thank you notes about friendly service and nice clean rooms. All lies. Until I reached the last entry. My own handwriting stared back at me. Name, car model, license plate, and my phone number. The ink was still fresh. Dated. Tonight. Below my entry, there was one more, written in a hurried scrawl, as if the hand had been shaking. Room. 8. Name. The line was left blank. Contact. Same number as mine. My head spun. I checked the number on my phone. They matched. The person in room 8 was using my number. No, not using. Sharing. As if whoever, whatever, was in there had been given all my information, or had taken it. And then I noticed something else. Under the checkout column, every single entry had a date. Every one. Except room 8. Every time someone wrote 8, the checkout date was left blank. Just an empty line stretching into nothing, waiting. The coughing started again. Louder this time. Closer. The wheezing scraped against the wall like a rusty saw. Then, clear as if they were standing right beside my bed, a voice whispered through the plaster, "I never checked out." The lamp flickered. Something moved on the other side of the wall. And the thin, desperate voice from the hallway returned, perfectly matched with the one in the wall. "Please," it said, now echoing from both sides, door and wall. "Please, let me in. Please, let me in." The voice wrapped itself around the room, leaking through the wall, seeping under the door, vibrating in the air like an echo that didn't know when to die. I backed away until my shoulders hit the opposite wall. "Stop," I whispered. "Just stop." The room obeyed. Silence poured in, thick and unnatural. The lamp hummed softly. The AC, still off, let out a tired groan, even though it hadn't been running. My phone buzzed in my hand. Another message. Unknown. "You're not like the others I swallowed." Me. What others? The reply came almost instantly. Unknown. The ones who open the ones who let me in. No one ever lets me stay. I stared at those lines until my throat tightened. The coughing started again next door. Harsher now, like something tearing. The wall vibrated lightly with each convulsion. I typed with trembling thumbs. Me. Who are you? 3 dots. Stop. Start again. When the reply finally came, it was only one word. Unknown. Stuck. The word felt wrong. Not like a description, more like a diagnosis. I glanced at the guest book again. Every room 8 entry, all of them with blank checkout dates. How many people had stayed there? How many had never left? Stuck, I repeated under my breath. What does that even mean? The lamp flickered once, twice, then steadied. My reflection in the TV screen looked drained, eyes wide, skin pale under the sickly light. For a second, I thought I saw someone standing behind me, a shape in the reflection just over my shoulder. I spun around. Nothing. Just the room. Just the bed. Just the door. Just the wall. Shh, shh, shh. That dragging started again. Not in the hallway this time. Inside the wall. Moving slowly. Crawling, maybe. Hands dragging, feet pulling behind, like someone pushing their body through a space not meant to hold anything human. It sounded closer. Right behind the headboard now. Then above it. Then, hard, sharp impact like a fist pounding from inside the wall, just inches from my face. "Help me." The voice wasn't thin anymore. It was raw, shredded, torn open by panic. I jumped away from the bed. "Stop!" I yelled, louder than I meant to. My voice sounded small and pathetic in the room. "Just stop!" Everything went quiet. The kind of quiet where you can hear your heartbeat in your ears. Then, soft as death. "You don't want to help me," the voice said. "You just don't want to be me." My skin prickled. "I didn't." "You checked in," it continued, not listening. "You signed. You wrote it all down. That's how it works. You already gave it to me." "Gave what?" The voice smiled through the wall. I could hear it. You can always hear it when a smile's wrong. "Your turn," it whispered. I don't know how long I stood there, shaking, staring at the wall as if it could suddenly split open. The clock on my phone crawled forward. 2:51 a.m., 2:58 a.m., 3:06 a.m. At some point, exhaustion pressed down on me. Not normal tiredness, Something heavier, like the air had thickened, turned into wet concrete around my limbs, dragging me down. I forced myself to sit in the chair by the window, facing both the door and the wall. Light on, shoes on, back straight, watchful. Just until morning, I told myself, then I'd leave. No shower, no checkout, no complaints. Just keys on the counter and tires screaming against the road. Just until morning. My eyes closed. I don't remember falling asleep. I just remember opening my eyes to a different room. Except it wasn't different. It was mine. Room 14. Same stains, same ugly floral bedspread, same buzzing lamp by the bed, but everything looked off. The colors were muted, edges were softer, the air felt thicker. It was like I was standing inside an old photograph of the room, not the room itself. The lamp buzzed, but the sound was muffled, distant, like it was traveling through water. The whine of electricity dragged behind reality. I tried to move. My body didn't respond, not fully. I could turn my head a little, move my fingers a bit, but walking felt wrong. I felt like a marionette whose strings had been tied to the wrong points. The door was closed. The wall to room 8 watched me. The guest book was still on the nightstand, but from where I stood, the pages looked empty. Just lines and lines and lines, waiting to be filled. I turned toward the window and froze. Outside, the parking lot was different. My car was there, but it looked older. Rust on the bumper, dust thick over the windows. The neon motel sign flickered, but the letters weren't the same. It didn't say Desert Palms Motel anymore, just no vacancy. Every room was lit from the inside, every single one. Shadowy shapes moved behind each curtain, figures pacing, sitting on beds, standing in corners. My phone buzzed again. I looked down. The screen was cracked, like it had been dropped, more than once. A familiar notification slid down the top. One new message. Unknown. I opened it. Unknown. You see it now, don't you? My heart thudded painfully in my chest. Me. See what? This time, the reply took longer. I watched the 3 dots dance on the screen. Unknown. How long you've been here? Something in me recoiled. Me. It's one night. I just got here. Unknown. Look in the mirror. I turned slowly toward the bathroom. The door was half open. Light off. A rectangle of darkness yawned inside. Every instinct screamed at me not to move, not to look, not to see. But the more you tell yourself not to do something, the more your body seems determined to disobey. My feet carried me forward. The bathroom mirror loomed, a dull rectangle on the wall. For a moment, I saw nothing. Then the darkness shifted. Not the room. My face. My reflection was wrong. Not monstrous. Not bloody. Not ghostly. Just older. My hair was longer, unwashed, hanging in tangled strands. My skin was gray, tired, hollow around the eyes. Stubble, or maybe a beard, shadowed my jaw in uneven patches. But it was my eyes that made me want to scream. They looked exhausted in a way I didn't have words for. Not I slept badly, exhausted. Everything ended and I stayed exhausted. I stumbled back. No, I whispered. No, that's not me. The reflection didn't move with me. It stayed where it was, staring out from the mirror, hands braced on the sink. Behind my reflected self, the bathroom of room 8 shimmered into view. Just for a second, like 2 channels overlapping on an old TV. Same tile, same chipped sink. But the shower curtain in that other room was drawn. Something moved behind it. The glass of the mirror rippled. Right where my face should be, another face pressed against the inside of the glass, pale, bloated, Skin swollen and discolored, lips dark and cracked, eyes milky and desperate. Its swollen fingers splayed against the silver surface from the other side. "Help me," it mouthed. No sound, just the shape of the words. "Help me!" I ran. Out of the bathroom, back into the room. Except it wasn't the room anymore. The walls had changed color. Dark patches bloomed across the ceiling, as if water had seeped through for years. The carpet was darker, stained, worn thin, where countless footsteps had dragged. The guest book on the nightstand lay open. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. From where I stood, I could read the last entry clearly. Room 8. Contact. My number. Check-in. A date I recognized from my phone. A month ago, too. More. The handwriting looked like mine, but underneath the entry, someone else had added in smaller, cramped letters. Never checked out. I woke up with a scream trapped in my throat. Back in the chair, back in the room. Lamp buzzing, phone heavy in my hand. The window dark, parking lot empty. Neon sign back to its broken, half-lit self. I checked the time. 3:47 a.m. My heart raced. Sweat drenched my shirt. My throat burned like I'd been breathing dust. I looked at the bathroom door. Half open. The mirror. Waiting. "No," I whispered. My voice sounded raw, like I'd been talking for hours. "No more." I grabbed my bag. Keys. Wallet. Phone. That was it. Everything else could rot in this room. In this motel. In this nightmare. I didn't care. I yanked the door open and almost crashed straight into someone. A figure stood directly outside my door, hand raised mid-knock. Their face was gray in the hallway light. Their clothes were wrong for the weather. Too thin, too old, like they'd been worn over and over for years. Their eyes were desperate. Their lips trembled. "Please," they whispered, "can you help me? They locked me out of my room. It's so cold. I just need somewhere to stay until morning." My voice died in my chest because I knew that face. Not from the news, not from missing posters, not from a dream. I knew it from the mirror. Bloated, cracked, ruined. I was looking at myself. Or at what I could become. Behind them, down the hall, the door to room 8 stood wide open. Dark. Waiting. The figure in the hallway didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't blink. It simply was, the way a shadow is, or a stain, something that remains long after the event that made it has passed. I staggered back into my room, but the doorway behind the figure seemed to stretch, as if the hall itself inhaled. The air thickened, pressing against my skin in silent pulses, urging me forward. It felt like the whole building had shifted on its foundations, waiting to decide what to do with me. I realized something else. The lights in the hallway weren't flickering anymore. They were pulsing, a slow, steady rhythm, like a heartbeat. The motel was breathing. The figure in the doorway tilted its head as if listening to that rhythm, to the walls, to the space between us. In that moment, I sensed it wasn't looking at me. Not really. It was listening for something deeper, something older. Behind it, room 8 yawned open like a mouth missing too many teeth. The darkness inside wasn't the ordinary type, not the absence of light, but the presence of something else. A density, a weight, like fog soaked in grief. The air rolling out of that doorway felt colder than the night outside, colder than any AC unit could make it. A cold that seemed to settle directly into the bones, bypassing skin entirely. The figure swayed slightly, as though pulled by a silent undertow coming from the open room, yet it didn't step toward it. It simply stood, blocking the threshold of my door, making escape impossible. My heartbeat hammered high in my throat. I couldn't tell if I was awake or dreaming or somewhere in between. A thin seam between consciousness and nightmare, where the edges of things didn't line up quite right. The hallway floor looked longer than before, the ceiling lower, the doors wrong. Every door except mine and room 8 had changed. The numbers were missing, the wood seemed warped, and the brass handles had tarnished into dull, corroded shapes barely recognizable as metal. It was as if the rest of the motel had aged decades in the span of minutes. A muffled groan trembled through the walls, not from pipes or vents, but something deeper, like the whole structure was shifting its weight, waking up after a long sleep. My gaze drifted to room 8. There was something inside that doorway. Not a person, not a shape, just the suggestion of movement. A ripple, barely visible, like a hand brushing against heavy fabric. The carpet in the hallway was darker near that room, saturated, worn down by countless dragging footsteps heading inward, none coming back. I could feel the history embedded in those fibers, the weight of repetition, of ritual. People entering, collapsing, fading, the motel swallowing them slowly, carefully, like something savoring a meal. The figure outside my door turned slightly, and for a split second, its features shifted, not in a supernatural way, but in a disturbingly human one, like someone who had once looked normal, but was slowly, painfully dissolving into the environment. The skin around its eyes sagged, the cheekbones sharpened, and its clothes hung from its frame like they had grown too large for the shrinking body beneath. It wasn't a ghost. It was someone who had been here too long. Someone who had slipped out of time as easily as stepping off a curb. As it shifted, something fell from its hand. A room key. Old. Brass. The numbers scratched off. It hit the carpet without a sound, sinking slightly into the fibers as if the floor wanted to swallow it. A heavy silence followed, a silence so absolute that I could hear the faint ticking of the neon sign outside, even through walls thick with rot. Every instinct in me screamed to run, to shove past the figure and sprint into the night. But my legs refused to move. The air felt syrupy around them, holding me in place, tethering me to the room like an invisible leash. The figure's breathing, slow, shallow, raspy, filled the hallway. It wasn't a request. It wasn't a demand. It was simply an existence, a reminder that everything in this motel was trapped in its own eternal night. And I was standing at the edge of joining it. Something stirred deeper inside room 8. A faint, dragging sound. The slow, deliberate movement of something that had once been human, pulling itself forward inch by inch. The walls around me tightened, as though the entire motel was inhaling, preparing. And for the first time since entering this place, I felt it clearly. I wasn't being haunted. I was being claimed. Chapter 5. What the motel remembered. The motel held its breath. Every surface, the walls, the ceiling, even the thin carpet under my shoes, felt tense, like skin stretched over bone. The air had a quiet pressure to it, as if something massive pressed down on the building from above. Time didn't pass normally here. It expanded and contracted, losing its edges. The figure blocking my doorway shifted again, and the overhead light bled across its face in slow, uneven strokes. Up close, its features were even more distorted by exhaustion. Hollow sockets, lips cracked to the point of bleeding, a neck too thin to support the weight of its own head. Its clothes clung to it like damp rags, heavy with a moisture that didn't belong in the desert. It dawned on me. The motel wasn't decaying around the people who stayed here. The people decayed into the motel. Its walls were too thick, its floors too soft, its shadows too full. Something absorbed everything that lingered. A low vibration trembled through the floorboards, subtle enough to miss if not for the figure reacting to it. Its shoulders tightened. Its head jerked as if hearing a command from a dark room far away. Its entire body leaned almost imperceptibly toward room 8. The open door gaped wider now. The darkness inside had texture, a heavy velvet swirl of shadow pulling inward. A faint, rhythmic thumping came from somewhere deep within it, like a heartbeat echoing through the structure, slow and deliberate. The motel was alive, and room 8 was its mouth. The figure outside my door trembled. Its skin seemed thinner, translucent under the humming lights, as if whatever made it human had been siphoned away over years. A faint smell drifted from it, old sweat, wet fabric, something sour beneath. It wasn't trying to stop me. It wasn't trying to enter. It was simply waiting, waiting for the motel to decide whether I belonged. The corridor around us changed again. The walls darkened, shapes shifting under layers of wallpaper like something crawling just beneath the surface. The pattern, once a faded floral print, twisted itself into shapes resembling faces, eyes half-formed, mouths open in stretched, silent moans. Not ghosts, not spirits. Memories compressed into the building's skin. The motel had kept them. Every guest who had stayed too long. Every life that dissolved in room 8. The faces watched me, recognition flickering through their distorted outlines. Not awareness, memory. The way a stain remembers the thing that caused it. My breath fogged the air, though the hallway shouldn't have been that cold. I could see it drifting in front of me, slow and heavy, like smoke in a sealed room. Something moved inside room 8 again. A dragging, closer this time. A heavy body pulling itself across the floor with deliberate, tortured movements. The sound carried weight, the muffled scrape of limbs against carpet, the protest of swollen joints, the wet shift of ruined lungs struggling for breath. The darkness bulged slightly at the threshold. Something was pressing against it from within.